Hello, grade sixes. Today we're going to talk about rights and responsibilities in Canadian democracy. This is a continuation of yesterday's writing prompt. So yesterday I asked you to think about what rights do you have in your home or at school? And have you ever had to fight for any of your rights or argue for any privileges, either here in Canada or in another country? So just to remind you, a right is a privilege or a freedom. It's something that people have often had to fight for. A responsibility is a duty or obligation. It's something that we do when we have rights. Because we have a right, we kind of also have a responsibility. So your right to an education comes with the responsibility of showing up for school prepared and on time. So I just want to talk a little bit about my own life and my rights and responsibilities. So I have the right in my home to speak freely, but I also have a responsibility that comes with that. So if I'm going to speak my mind, I still need to do that with respect for the other people in my household. So I don't want to be harmful, even though I'm maybe telling a truth that's difficult. So I just want to highlight Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is something you will probably learn about later in your life, but we all have a right to some basic needs. We have the right to food, water, warmth, and rest, and to safety and security. And not everybody in the world has these basic needs met. So even though it is a right, it is not something that everybody gets. Same with our psychological needs. So things that affect our minds. So we have the right to have friends and to have good, meaningful relationships. And we have the right to feel good and to feel like we've done something meaningful. So again, not everyone has these, which is where some of the laws that we're going to talk about come in. So rights and responsibilities, like I described, are a two-way street. One affects the other back and forth. So the right to freedom of speech comes with a responsibility to be kind to those that you're speaking to. So rights and freedoms in Canada. In 1982, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms was established. And we're going to talk about this for the next little while in social studies. I just want to draw your mind back to the pillars of democracy. So if you have not completed your Pillars of Democracy assignment, could you please work on this? I really want you to consider what these four ideas mean. So what is freedom? What is representation? What is equity? What is justice? You have to put a picture to that and you have to do some describing. So remember, those are in Social Studies Hub 6 content, and it's called Pillars of Democracy or 4 Pillars of Democracy. Please go there and do this assignment before going into the rest of this. So pause the video here. If that's what you need to do, stop the video, go do that, and then you can come back and look at the rest of it. So on April 17th, 1982, Queen Elizabeth II signed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms into law. The Charter protects the fundamental rights and freedoms of Canadians. Now, 1982 to you guys seems like a really long time ago, but for me, that's in my lifetime. And I find it amazing that it took us until 1982 to talk about some of this stuff and to make it law. So there are 7 sections of the Charter. And this is what it looks like, this picture down to the right. So it's quite a lot of words. So if that's too much for you, don't worry. You just need to kind of understand what is in there. So there are fundamental or basic freedoms. There are democratic rights, mobility rights, legal rights, equality rights, official languages of Canada, minority language education rights. So we're going to go through these a little bit. So your fundamental freedoms, your basic rights, are the right to worship your God and no God. Freedom of religion is what we call that. The right to form your own opinion, freedom of thought. The right to share your opinions, freedom of expression or freedom of speech. The freedom of the media to report on all matters and events. The right to join or leave a group. Freedom of association is what that's called. The right to gather and protest is the freedom of peaceful assembly. So you're allowed to protest peacefully in Canada. Our democratic process. There are too many people in Canada for everyone to have a say in every political decision. So we vote for representatives to make decisions and pass laws on our behalf. This is called a representative democracy. So remember, there were two types of democracy when we were looking at the pillars of democracy. This one is where we elect somebody to stand and represent us. And there are those three levels of government. There's the local government, so the city of Calgary, the provincial government, Alberta, and the federal government. I want you to take a minute, pause the video, and find out who your representatives are at the city level, the provincial level, and the federal level. The city level is a city councillor. The provincial level is an MLA, member of the Legislative Assembly, and the federal level is an MP, member of Parliament. Sorry about all my little trips. So elections are the processes by which those elected representatives are chosen. So we have an election every 4 years. So every Canadian citizen, 18 years and older, has the right to vote in a Canadian election and to be a candidate in a Canadian election. Now, you guys are quite a bit younger than that, so you're probably thinking, well, what about us? You can still do things to be active in the democracy. You can write letters, you can converse with your friends and peers, you can talk to your parents, you can still go to rallies with your parents, that sort of thing. Our democratic rights also include the requirement of the federal government to hold an election at least every 5 years. So this is the right to vote. The right to vote has been fought for by various groups throughout our history. Initially, only men who owned land or a house could vote. After much protest by men and women who thought this was unfair, women received the right to vote federally in 1918. The last limitations for various ethnic groups and religious groups were not removed until 1960, meaning that some people did not have the right to vote up until 1960. This is again why we need to kind of fight for our rights. So universal suffrage is the expansion of the right to vote to all adult citizens. So that happened in 1960. We've talked about responsibility. I'm going to skip that. So your responsibilities in a democracy, it is the responsibility of all Canadians to respect and follow the rules set out by the Constitution. So the right to vote comes with the responsibility to vote and to make an informed decision. So here's a look at the federal voter turnout. Okay, so that means like when Justin Trudeau is running and the MPs in all the areas of Canada are running, this is how many Canadian citizens over the age of 18 turn up. So it kind of is in around that 60% range, okay, just a little bit above, a little bit below. So 60 out of 100 people are showing up, which means that 40% or 40 out of 100 are not voting. So why do you guys think that is? What do you think keeps people from voting? Maybe pause the video and give that a little bit of thought. So how important is it that individuals behave as responsible members of society and why? These are things I want you to think about. I might even put this as the writing prompt for today. Will you vote when you turn 18? Why? Why not? So please don't just give me yes or no answers here, you guys. Make sure you are telling me why you think what you think. And should voters lose the right to vote if they choose to ignore their duty to vote in an election? And again, why or why not? So you can pick one of those questions, or you can pick all three and write at least 5 sentences in total. Okay, we will talk more about the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in the coming days. I hope this was helpful.